Can Rajon Rondo find a home in Sacramento? Will Ben McLemore continue starting? Is the Tasmanian Devil DeMarcus Cousins' spirit animal? The only question left is, say it with me, sports fans, you win? Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the BBallBreakdown podcast. I am pleased to bring on James Ham, who is the Sacramento Kings insider for CSN Bay Area. So James, what's going on today?
Oh, not a whole lot. How's it going, Coach Nick?
Well, I was just watching a whole bunch of the half-court field goals made by the Kings against the Clippers in Game 1.
Was it pretty or was it not?
Well, the one thing that stood out to me, because you know what's amazing is when you watch a team make 30 field goals in a row, hey, they seem pretty good. But here's the thing: I don't think I noticed Rajon Rondo in hardly any of those plays.
Yeah, it's a struggle. He's trying to find his way with this team early, and he hasn't had. I mean, he's had a great camp as far as he's in great shape. He's feeling healthy. He's sort of the leader on the floor and off the floor. He's been extremely vocal. He's trying to get this team, specifically on the defensive end, to really start talking. He's doing all of that, but at the same time, he hasn't really been able to get a shot. He hasn't really finished well. He hasn't had a big assist game, maybe one big assist game all through preseason. He isn't quite figuring out this team and the dynamic of Rudy Gay and DeMarcus Cousins yet. And he's also, I kind of give him a little bit of leeway here because I think the Kings are still unsettled at the 2 and at the 4, and that's making his life a little more difficult.
I don't doubt it. I mean, I see when I was watching these plays, the first thing that jumped out at me was that it was still pretty stagnant, still pretty old school. I'm not looking at, I kind of quickly did it, so I didn't look at all the misses, which could have been some other special, fun offensive sets. But I see a little bit of pistol action where they dribble pitch and then they inside ball screen, which is old school but kind of new these days. So that was the thing. It's like, are we sort of stuck in this Byron Scott era time warp with George Karl?
I don't think so. I think, George Karl he's pushed the tempo the entire preseason. They ran with an 18-second shot clock all through camp, and sometimes they even shaved a few seconds off of that. But what we saw in the opening quarter of opening night was a ridiculous, collapse of everything that you've been trained. And I think that's got to be really frustrating for a coach that you spend all this time. But at the same time, the Kings hadn't played anyone except for themselves in 10 days. They had this really strange preseason schedule where all of their games were together, all at the beginning of camp, and then they had all this extra time together, just as a team. And you think, well, that's great. They've got plenty of time to implement plays and everything else. But really, you're just playing against the same group of guys again and again and again. You know their tendencies. You know what to do to get around DeMarcus Cousins or to get around Costa Koufos. So all of these things, you have to look at the entirety of what's happened. I think it was really shocking in that first quarter to watch 2 shot clock violations in the first 4 or 5 minutes. And, especially when you're sitting here pushing the tempo all through training camp, all of a sudden – you just lose everything. You throw everything out the window that you've been working on. So it's a work in progress. I mean, the Kings have 9 new players, and really it's 10 because Eric Moreland, played 2 minutes total last year and had shoulder surgery and didn't even practice with the team. So this is a new group that hasn't had time at all to gel on the court, and it's gonna take some patience.
I don't doubt it, and I think that people who are really optimistic in the Sacramento fandom might not necessarily take all that into consideration. I mean, 10 new players, let's just say 10, that's crazy. That is, that's 2/3 of the team. I don't expect anybody to be able to get that going quickly. The funny thing about I read about the whole shot clock thing and how he sped it up and to get them to go faster. And it's weird to me because part of me feels like the only thing that'll do is force your team to to jack up quick shots. Whereas to me, when you want him to go faster, even if it's like a half-court set, it takes 12, 14 seconds, you want the individual players and the ball to be moving quickly. And I wonder do you think that is an area of concern while George Karl is trying to get him to play faster?
The one thing I did note, I'll point this out, it's that they want to play faster, and that's the ultimate goal. But they have Rondo and they have Collison as their two guards, and you couldn't have two more different players ever as far as one position. You have an offensive-minded guy who plays with incredible pace, and then you have, sort of the methodical, old-school pass-first point guard. And so not only are you installing an offense and a pace, but you're doing it for two totally different types of players. So when you've got Rondo on the floor, he's going to use that entire 18 seconds because he's trying to find the best possible shot for his team. And when you've got Collison on the floor, he's flying around and he's finding open players in rhythm. And so the dynamic of this team is very odd, and it's going to take some time, which, again, I keep repeating, is going to take time. But I think a lot of it has to do with that as well. I mean, if you even look at the center position, if the Kings lose DeMarcus Cousins and they drop in Costa to fill his spot, you can't run the ball through Costa for 25 points and 14 rebounds a night. That's not going to work. But that's really what they're trying to do at the point guard position when they switch out. And so, again, it's a dynamic that has to figure itself out. And eventually I think it will. But will the Kings be too far behind by the time that happens? Will they still be even in a conversation? And I mean, you watch the tape from the Clippers game. The one thing I'll say is, no matter how poorly they played, the Clippers didn't pull away from them. And they actually took a fourth quarter lead with, I think it was just like under 4 minutes remaining. So how far away are they? I don't think anyone really knows. And if this team does click, all of those new pieces really fit together well. And it could be one of those sort of synergy moments where everything comes together and this team it goes from, being a very questionable team to an exceptional team, like, very quickly.
Well, what's amazing is that we spent this whole time talking about the Kings and really didn't even talk about DeMarcus Cousins, which means that we're going to have to do this again. And you have to come back on and we'll talk a little bit more in depth about what Boogie is doing, because obviously the threes he's taking. Well, how about the one question I'll ask real quick? Is this a thing? Is he going to be shooting threes?
Yes.
Love it.
He is. He's actually a really good shooter. It was a nightmare for him in preseason. He didn't hit the broadside of a barn. But 4 or 5 in the first game, he can really shoot. And the other thing we know about him is that he absolutely hates the Clippers.
I don't doubt it. And if he hates the Clippers themselves, I can only imagine the depth of his hate for Chris Paul.
Yeah, the depth of hate there is it's substantial. And the other, I don't think it's just Chris Paul, but that's probably the biggest one that he can't stand. Man, if he can calm down on Saturday night and just play a game without getting all emotional and getting, squirrely. I've said this on a couple of shows. The thing about Cousins is he's driven by anger and hatred, and I don't know why that is. It's just how he's wired, and I kind of feel for him at sometimes because he doesn't know any better. He's so emotional, and he's just wired that way. But the things that make him average, 24 and 13 last year, the things that made him put up 32 and 13 on opening night is the same thing that makes him turn the ball over 8 times and get 6 fouls.
And technical fouls.
Yeah. There is no off switch. There is no big dial to tone it down. He just has such a difficult time with that, and I hope that there's a moment in his life where the body chemistry says, okay, let's, like the rest of us who, all of a sudden we start getting fat. When we hit that age, I hope that at that moment where he hits man maturity, that his brain allows him to slow down and enjoy what he's doing and, live in the moment of being literally one of the top 5 players in the world at a sport. And, again, we talk about Cauley Stein having the ability. Cousins has all the ability in the world to be more than what he is right now, and that's really scary. And if the Kings can win, I think he'll start getting accolades, and I hope that helps him and helps him find some peace. But man, I just wouldn't want to live that way. I wouldn't. The glass half empty, half full thing, but all day long, every day of your waking being. That's tough. And I think we're lucky we get to see him play basketball. But he's gifted. He's really, really gifted.
Well, it's too bad. As a coach, we have techniques and we deal with that mental side, and it really hasn't been. The surface hasn't even been scratched to how to tap into that and help players like that. Because, like you said, I think he needs some help. I think guys like Rondo and even CP3 need help as well. Even though the argument tends to be, that's what fuels him. That's why he plays so well. I think it's nonsense. I think that you can easily channel that into a much more present of mind and eliminate all the negative things that are happening. I mean, listen, this is a whole other show, but we've seen it with CP3. He plays the same way. I'm not surprised that they butt heads, and we've seen it cause meltdowns where they lose games in series because of it.
And Karl is working so hard to try to teach him that very thing, that I love your energy, and your energy, I will never put a dampener on your energy, but I need to take your negative energy and make it positive. And that's there. Even Rondo is working with Cousins on how to make the energy more positive. And, Caron Butler's doing the same thing. He's having discussions. And even in that first game, there was a point where Cousins thought he got called for a foul, and Butler had reached in and grabbed and then raised his hand, ran to the official, and took it. And Cousins is screaming and yelling. I talked to Butler about this yesterday. He walked over and said, "Hey, big guy, I got you. I got you this time. You go sit over there and calm down. I got the foul. You just go play." That's what a veteran does. He goes over and he not only he gets the foul transferred, but he also works with the player at the same time. It's just, you figure 5 or 6 years in the league, he would learn, but he's had more coaches than that. So, everyone's got a different idea of how to fix him. And at the end of the day, I think sometimes God helps those who help themselves.
That's true. Well, you've helped us quite a bit on this podcast with all of your terrific information. So tell everybody, where do we find you on Twitter?
Let's see, Twitter, @James_Ham, which is HAM. That's where you can find me on Twitter. I also have a Facebook page.
Yes. Tell us it. Where is it?
You know what? It's it's a journalist account. Just look me up, James Ham. You'll see my personal account. You'll see a journalist account that I have on Facebook. I could probably find that somewhere, but I'm not good at Facebook.
It's easy to find. Now, also, tell us about CSN, and that's a new digs for you. So what are you doing for them this year?
Yeah, I'm loving it. I am the CSN Kings insider, basically Comcast Sports California. You'll find me on every telecast. I get to do some TV work, and then my writing is there, which has always been sort of what I'm known for, is my writing on the Kings. I've covered them for 5 years, formerly with Cowbell Kingdom, but I have moved on to bigger and better things, and I'm loving it. Doing the TV side, getting to a little bit more access, a little bit more of everything. It has been a lot of fun.
Well, it's great to hear. I remember we went way back when, so it's been a great progression to watch you get through and get there. So I know I'm excited to see you pop up on my my league pass on TV. So thanks for coming on. You'll have to come on again, and we'll talk more Boogie.
Yeah, anytime. Boogie talk. It's always fun.
You got it. And don't forget, sports fans, at BBallBreakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you in, James?
I'm in.